Hi, this is Yucca with my fourth guide on Java and Java development. In this guide I'm going to switch to an integrated development environment, and I'm going to discuss with you why it's reasonable as a Java developer or any developer to use a integrated development environment, and sometimes these are referred to as builders and or value-added text editors. Now in the previous example I created a basic Hello World application, a very simple Java application, and it printed a message to the standard output device. In that example, the standard output device was based upon the tool that we were using to launch the Java application, and we got a message printed to our command prompt because we used the command prompt as the client of the application. And to demonstrate this to you, the process that we used to develop that application was very tedious, and I'm going to show you now and how and why when we switch to an integrated development environment it benefits us greatly as a developer. So let's start off with going through the process that we took. Firstly, we created a directory to work from, which is fine. We created an additional source directory. Now this was a lot more work than needed when using an integrated development environment. Additionally, we set up environment variables for our source code directory, which contains our Java source code, and we set up a class path environment variable for the Java virtual machine. Now all of these steps could have been avoided, as I'll show you in this example, and what we did was create a Java source code file, a hello youtube.java. Even that process was more tedious than need be. We created it using text document option in Windows, and when doing so we had to save the file with the extension manually. You don't need to do this with an integrated development environment, as I'll demonstrate to you. And we also, as I'll show you in this tutorial, when switching to an integrated development environment we could have avoided an error which crept up in the previous example where I forgot an identifier, as I'll demonstrate to you in this tutorial. So the error that occurred in the previous example was that I forgot an identifier here. Now I'm going to reverse the error so that the Hello YouTube Java application that I created in the previous example, it will no longer compile, and thus I won't be able to run the application. I'm also going to show you in this guide how to identify errors, compilation errors, if you wish to continue developing from the command prompt. So to do that, and to demonstrate firstly to you how tedious and expensive it can be with regards to time when developing from the command prompt and through a basic text document option like Notepad and so forth, the possibility of numerous errors and how they can be avoided. So the first step that we did in the previous example, remember we viewed ourselves as author of a book, or essentially Java code, and when we run the Java C command we essentially send it to hypothetically a publisher where the file is validated for any errors, and we are informed of errors and we need to fix those errors. So now I've purposefully included an error in this Java file, and I'm going to try and run the Java C with the destination directory, which is our class path. And note that every command that I'm typing in here is a room for potential error, and this can increase the development time that it takes you to develop from the command prompt. As an example, if I leave out an H over here in the class path environment variable, I won't be able to compile the application. Likewise, the file that I'm going to compile, I'm going to reuse from the previous example, was the hello youtube.java, and if I try and run the command now, you'll see that it gives me an error. Now the error is purely based on the fact that the file name here, I forgot a H, I hope. Oh, there you see it compiled. So when you develop from the command prompt, there's room for error, and You wish to avoid this essentially as a programmer. It takes up time, especially if you're new to learning Java and so forth. This will benefit you when you switch to an integrated development environment. Likewise, if I leave out the .java extension, you'll see I get the same error and so forth. So that's just one of the entry points of potential errors when developing, which will consume your time as a developer. The other thing I wish to show you is that when we have errors in our code, as opposed to using an integrated development environment, the process of fixing these errors is a lot more tedious than when we use an integrated development environment. So what I'm doing here is I'm purposefully including an error here like was in the previous example. I'm removing an identifier here, and each time that we modify our source code file using a text editor or the methodology I've been using thus far, it requires us to save the document, and only once you've saved it will you be able to recompile and try again. And you'll see I get an error here when I compile the file, and if you're using the command prompt you get a little bit of a message here. Now this isn't really useful when compared to an integrated development environment. All it tells us is that on line 2 there's an error, there's an identifier expected, and no matter how many times I repeat this command, I'm going to get the same error until I fix it. So I have to go into the Java source code file, and I manually have to locate line 2 where the error is located, and this is line 2 over here. I'll highlight it for you, and I have to go and add the identifier for the method. We'll get to class and method structure in that in an upcoming tutorial. And now that I've rectified it, once again I have to save the file, and I can try and compile it again, and I get no errors, and then I'll be able to run the Java hello YouTube to launch my application, and I get the output as expected here. Now because this application is working in its current format again, I'm simply going to copy the layout or the class structure, and I'm going to switch to an integrated development environment. Now there are numerous options when it comes to integrated development environments. In general they behave the same way, and they provide you with the same tools which enhance the development experience. Now I personally use IntelliJ IDEA, and to get it firstly it's under commercial license, you have to pay for it. There is a free option available which provides less support than the commercial option. To get it you can go to jetbrains.com, and you can choose the version that you wish. For IntelliJ IDEA, which is the integrated development environment that I use, and you can just click through the options here. If you wish for a free integrated development environment, you can get a fantastic one from netbeans.org. I have both downloaded and installed on my system prior to this tutorial, just to save some time. But to show you how you increase your time in developing with the integrated development environment, I'll go through what we've done thus far using an integrated development environment, and hopefully you'll see that it increases and enhances the development time and productivity, so forth. So first thing we're going to do is create a new project in IntelliJ IDEA, and we're going to choose a name for our project, and we're going to choose the same file directory name as we did in the previous. We're going to choose example in lowercase letters, and note the location of where IntelliJ projects are stored on your file. They're usually stored under your username, under your IDEA projects directory. For example, if I go to my C drive, look for users, my user account name and IDEA projects, you'll see that I have the example directory located there for me, and tells me I already have the project, so I'm just going to overwrite it. And anyway, note that the integrated development environment here, we already skip one step. It will create a source directory for us, so that increases the time that we take to develop with. We've skipped one process, and we're going to create a basic Java web application just for the sake of this example, and just close any tooltips and so forth. Anyway, so we're going to go to the source code directory which was created for us. Right click it, and we have the options here for various file types. Note that integrated development environments is not just Java code that you can develop with. You can develop PHP, HTML, and so forth. So that's just another benefit of an integrated development environment. Now anyway, for this example, which kind of enhances upon the previous example, we're going to create a Java class file, and conveniently for us, the name that we choose will become our class name by default. And I mentioned in the previous example, you can picture yourself as an author of a book, and when you choose the file name of your class file, basically you're naming your book, as I'll show you again. That's if you think of yourself as an author as opposed to a Java developer, just to put a aspect to it so that you can understand. But anyway, the name that we choose here must match the name of the class file, and choose hello YouTube class, and now we can just Control A and paste in the working version of the Java application that we have, and we can run the Java application by a simple click of a button. Now picture what we had to do when using the outdated methodology. We had to go to the command prompt, we had to compile the code, then we had to transfer the compiled Java code into the directory which is configured in the class path, and so forth. But with the integrated development environment, all that we need to do is just press an option like the run option here, and note that we get our output here, not in the command prompt. This is based on the standard output device which is configured by the client that you are using. And some other options here, if you press Ctrl D, you duplicate the previous line. So let's do that 4 times. Now we should get hello YouTube and Java printed out 4 times here. I did mention the structure very briefly of the main method in the previous example. The main method basically launches your Java application, and it executes it statement by statement until all the statements and code within this block over here gets executed, and once that's executed, your application finishes. And when an application finishes successfully, you get a exit code of 0. This is across all languages and so forth. So now when we run the application, you'll note that I get hello Java here printed out in numerous times. But more importantly, the benefit of an integrated development environment is, as per our error that we had earlier where we forgot an identifier, and let's go and remove the identifier here in this example, you get warnings here in red that there's something wrong with your code and so forth. Now let's try and run the application, and let's see what we get here. Well, it tells us the same error message here, and it tells us there's an identifier expected. Now one of the benefits here is that it tells us that it's on line 2 and the exact location, column based. It's on column 33 is the exact location of the error, and it's highlighted for us over here. And if we double click this line here, let's instruct the editor to show line numbers. Now on line 2 here, as per the error message here, there's an error located column 33. If I click over here, the caret is at column 33, as is verifiable over here. If you don't believe me, I'll just shift to over there. Now it's at column 36, and to remedy it, I'm going to go back to column 33, which is over there, and I'm going to type in the identifier which is expected and run the Java application, and you'll see I get the output as expected. Likewise, if I try and name the file to a different name to the file name over here, I'll get an error, just as an example, just to show that the name that you choose for the file must become the file name for your Java application. And you'll see I get an error, it can't find the class, and the reason for that is because the file name, which is hello YouTube dot or hello YouTube sorry, just bear with me, sorry, remedy it, and so anyway, our Java application is working, and I've showed you that by using integrated development environment you're able to pick up on errors speedily, and it increases development time. I'm going to show you the same example in Netbeans here if you wish to use an integrated development environment that's for free. And to do so, I'm going to launch Netbeans. You get it from netbeans.org, and I'm going to use the same code as per the previous. I'm going to create a new project, Java based project, Java application, and the name that you choose here in Netbeans, you'll get a default main class. Now, a main class across integrated development environments is the class or the Java file which contains the main method which launches your Java application. And the name that you choose here for your project will become not only your project directory, but it will also become the name of a default main class. So we're going to choose hello YouTube as our project name, and note where Netbeans projects are stored. They are stored under your, if you go to your My Documents under Netbeans projects, once I've created the project here, select Finish, and just go back to the directory. See hello YouTube has been created for me, and I also have a source code directory created for me, and this is pretty consistent across integrated development environments. So all the directory creation that we did in the previous example is done for us, file names are created for us, and as you can see, this will increase the time that you use to develop with. So I hope this benefits you. Anyway, I'm going to Control A and paste in, and you'll see that I have an error here, and it's located on line 1. Now the error that we have here is because if we click on it, we have to have a package structure. We'll get to package structures and that in upcoming tutorials, but the integrated development environment, it will allow you to fix it by simply just clicking on the highlight or the warning that you have here. If you click on the light bulb, and everything's in green in the editor, so if I run the application here, I'll hopefully get the same output that I did here. Just wish to copy everything in IntelliJ, the code, go to Netbeans, just so that the application does the same thing. Right, and if I run the application here, and basically when we run the application once again, it compiles it, builds the application, and runs the Java command all in one step, as opposed to having to run it in the command prompt. And remember, doing so from the command prompt itself can be very erroneous. If we make one single character typo, if we leave out a character, we won't be able to run our Java application, and so forth. And all of this can be avoided in an integrated development environment. So now let's run the project, hello YouTube, and let's fix the error here. Firstly, we need to tell the integrated development environment where to locate the main class, which is hello YouTube. Select OK. Sorry, the name that I chose here. There we go. If I run the, I'll go through what happened. Here we have the so I'm going to try and run it again. Oh, there we go, we got our output on that. I'll just go through that error very briefly, what happened. It wasn't a coding error, it was related to the integrated development environment. In fact, it was. The name that I had here was incorrectly defined. So if I try and run the application again, it tells me that it can't find the hello YouTube file. Now remember, the hello YouTube name here that I've chose for the file here has to match the name that we specify as the class file name, and sometimes you need to configure and customize which file is configured to have the main method which launches your Java application. As we've done over here, we've told it which class contains the main method, that's the hello YouTube E with two E's, which is incorrect. Anyway, you can choose that as the file name, and so we're going to add an E over there, and we're going to try and run the application again, and everything worked successfully. But anyway, the main point of an integrated development environment is that it increases your productivity as a developer. It points out numerous errors to you, and if I wish to, I could rename this file, in which case the application won't work any longer. Refactor it, run the application, and if I change the class name again to hello YouTube and try and run the application, I get an error because the file name which I've configured here does not match the class name configured up here. So if I add an E to this, I should be able to run the application, and because I changed the name, I have to reconfigure it in the integrated development environment. If you're using Netbeans, go to Customize, Browse for your main class, and choose the correct name as follows, and see if it works. Get our output as expected, so forth. Anyway, this guide just shows you why and how you should switch to integrated development environment. In the next example, I'm going to go through the full class structure. As Java developers, there are some rules that we need to adhere to, and amongst these are the structure of a class and the layout of a class file, including commenting and packaging structure, and we'll get to that in the next example. This is example 4 of our series of videos on Java. Thank you for watching.